soul leaving your body. Anyway, we're all gonna die. You're gonna die, I'm going to die. Heck, even Fidel Castro just died. That one person you think will never die is gonna die. I know this well because everyone knows it. But I really know it because for the past 6 years, I've been a hospice social worker and grief specialist. In other words, I'm a real hit at a party. When making small talk, inevitably, the "what do you do?" question pops up, and people answer, "I'm a life coach, I'm a producer, I have an Etsy store, I have my own business." All super glamorous responses. The truth is, I actually like my job, so I'm honest. And once I say I'm a hospice social worker, the cute guy that is showing a glimmer of interest goes wide-eyed and backs up and mutters things like, "Whoa, that must be so sad. And man, my work doesn't contribute like yours does. Wow." Somehow, by simply stating what I do for a living, I end up feeling that I've emasculated the dude who, until that point, had been showing some interest in me. And when I explain that I actually love my job, he suddenly becomes more interested in taking a call and examining the cheese plate on the opposite side of the room. Wait a minute, I'm 43 and I've never had true love. It must be LA. You might be wondering how one gets into this line of work. It's not just something you fall into. I was born a ray of sunshine. I used to share love wherever I went. The park, the store, even the toll booth operator at the Coronado Bridge in San Diego where I lived as a kid. I always wanted to hand them the money so I could say I love them. That's really how I felt. I loved it all. But when my parents broke up when I was 2, my intuitive and empathic little self began to be aware of their grief. And I took it in as my own. As I grew, I think people could sense that I was able, even at a young age, to hold space for those in crisis and sadness. And they projected their difficult feelings onto me. The light in that sunshine kid's eyes dimmed a bit, and the love I used to share with the world dulled with each year of my childhood, especially during adolescence. I got a lot of attention from boys for how I looked. That's really me at 13. I responded by feeling obligated to do something sexual. These boys treated me horribly. They told their friends, started rumors, and bullied even more of the sunshine out of me. At age 14, I found myself in Planned Parenthood with a gonorrhea diagnosis. At 14. The boy who gave it to me called me a slut and told the school. And if you've ever been to high school, been a teenager, or even just lived on planet Earth, you know boys' treatment is nothing compared to girls. I thought by my just being me, I deserved it. I hid the abuse from my family because it was humiliating. I internalized the pain and used alcohol, drugs, and food to escape. At a party, I was never the girl up on the table dancing and laughing. I was the girl under the table crying, eating a fistful of goldfish. At first, people were concerned, but once it was established, oh, that's just Emily's thing, then they'd ignore me. I felt like I was crying not only for myself, but for everyone else too. Classic empath. At age 17, I did what any insecure high schooler does in times of hardship. I started dating an older guy who already graduated, which made me feel super cool and safe, finally. Sure, he was possessive, like really possessive. He made me call him on all my breaks and spend all my afternoons with him. But I was more than happy to trade in my freedom for his protection. But more important than his protection was who he introduced me to, his mother. She was dying of lung cancer and, well, she loved me. She didn't see a slut or an alcoholic. She saw the sunshine girl I was in the deepest, darkest corner of myself. For some reason, I wasn't scared at her deteriorating body or the tube she was attached to. And for months, while my classmates were playing sports or hanging out at the mall, I read the Bible to a sick woman I barely knew at her request and took walks with her up and down the hospital corridors. She died on Thanksgiving Day. I didn't know it then, but looking back, I realized this was the beginning of my career. But it took years, decades even, of processing my own sadness, addictions, and grief before I was able to recognize that what I had to offer, the way I did when I was 17 in those hospital hallways, was actually special and unique. No offense to all you vivacious beings here, but I like hanging around people that are dying sometimes better than being at some special event with all of you. With my clients, there's no pretending. I never have to peel away how people really feel. They're like, fuck it, you're a stranger, but I'm gonna pee right in front of you. Most of my job is simply being with the person. I sit and I let them cry. We talk about all the ways in which their world has shifted. I listen and I listen and I listen. Sometimes I hold their hand, sometimes we watch Jeopardy, but we never watch the Kardashians or Fox News. Even I have my limits. In this past week, I was at a mansion in Bel Air and a small apartment in South Central. In death, we are all equal. No matter how rich or successful people were, the same sentiments come up consistently. Wishing they'd spent more time with their loved ones, regretting that they'd been less than understanding to those that went before them, or that they hadn't told people how they really felt about them. And across the board, I can tell you this, no one wishes they had dieted a little more or lost that last 10 pounds. No one. I also work with people from all faiths. Once I had an elderly atheist for a client who had been a scholar. We had wonderful conversations about life, and he would tell me how this is it, death is the end. He seemed obsessed with proving the point to me. Quite literally, on his deathbed, he had a last burst of energy and declared with big, wide eyes, "There is a God." He seemed so surprised, but was assured. In my experience, each person has to have their own experience of God, whether it is literally on their deathbed or the beliefs they have while living. I'm just here to listen and bear witness. I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. It's still a job though. So when I am in my house with a big roach problem, and I don't want to sit down, I have to do it. Or I have to come up with some creative way to distract them from my preoccupations and make them feel seen, heard, and important. It truly is an acrobatic dance, one in which I must always be present from moment to moment. I try to detach, but it's not always so simple. My very first client was so kind, quiet, and humble. He had no more family, and he handled managing his decline himself until he couldn't. And one day I rushed him in an ambulance to a skilled nursing facility. Later on that day, the nurse said she saw him sitting up in bed, eating and talking on the phone. I had helped. It felt good. The next day, I received news that he died in the night, and shockingly, I was surprised. How could he die? Oh yeah, he's on hospice and had a terminal disease. I didn't want him to die, but he did, because we all will. Even Brad Pitt, President Obama, and one day, even Trump. I'm also asked with helping loved ones come to grips with their loss. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's celebratory. I'll never forget this one woman showed me, the very first time I met her, videos of her mother shaking her butt. And when she was still able-bodied. We laughed hysterically in a celebration of her previous vitality, but she died days later. I learned that we all deal with loss differently, but we never just get over it. We are resilient, we adapt, and we move on. I realized something the past couple of years. My early experiences, and if I were being honest, many of my adult experiences, painful as they were, made me able to show up for this work and for so many people that come calling me when they are in the dark. Sad and depressed Emily doesn't show up. It's the sunshine girl that loves who is there. It is the sunshine girl that sits with people and does crossword puzzles and pets their cats. I love cats. I have one. I found a place where my gifts for depth and inquiry for life were recognized, welcomed, and appreciated. A place where I could talk about why we're all here and have deep philosophical questions. Sure, there's some times with people who will never call me again, but that's okay. I've been trying to find a partner in LA for 20 years, so I'm used to it. This might sound weird, but this career takes talent, a special set of skills. Not everyone can do what Beyonce does, and not everyone can do what I do. I'll admit, I'm basically the Beyonce of death and grief support. Usually I shy away from talking about my career so others won't feel uncomfortable. But fuck it, I will totally sit with you when you're sad and things aren't going your way and when you are dying. I'm doing fucking brave things like telling this story. That's why I know when I'm on my deathbed, I won't have to wonder if I did anything meaningful. Sure, I might wonder why I didn't incarnate as a party planner, an Etsy store owner, or even Beyonce for that matter. But the next run, I might be that.